console wars is something that you are probably aware of already. Today is a battle between Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, although they seem to cater to a very different type of gamer. But before Microsoft first entered the gaming industry with their first Xbox in 2001, there was another company that completed this trinity of gaming. We're talking about Sega, a gaming company that, if you're under 30, you might not know much about them. But for all of those who grew up with it, they are the Sonic guys. Sega used to be a massive player in the console market, giving even Nintendo a run for their money, all while paving their way for Xbox and PlayStation in the process. But ultimately, Sega's console business became a victim of its own innovation, and their desire to push the envelope and break the mold saw the once mighty gaming powerhouse bow out of the console market altogether. However, the rumors regarding Sega's fall were greatly exaggerated, as the company was far from fading away into obscurity. Instead, Sega decided to double down on software development, and slowly but surely, they managed to not only consolidate their position, but to thrive. The company is now entering some sort of renaissance, if you will, with a future that has the potential to be just as bright as the past. The best place to start is at the beginning of Sega's first meaningful foray into the home console market with the 8-bit Master System, the 16-bit Mega Drive, or Genesis for those in the United States. Until this point, Sega was best known for their arcade titles, which, to this very day, continue to suck the change out of our collective pockets for decades. For this very reason, Sega's whole mission statement when entering the home console market was to bring this arcade experience into your living room. Released as a foil to Nintendo's NES console, which was absolutely smashing it the world over at the time by the way, the Master System burst onto the US and European shelves in 1986 and 1987, respectively, to very different fortunes. The Master System itself was a perfectly playable, fun system, which delivered on the promise of bringing home Sega's flagship arcade titles with as many authentically as could be churned out of the 8-bit architecture. It could not, perhaps unsurprisingly, topple Nintendo from their lofty position, and struggled badly in both Japan and the United States, with only around 3 million units sold in total between these two territories, despite a much more encouraging 7 million units sold in Europe. It was the release of the 16-bit Mega Drive, however, that Sega really came to the fore. Released between 1988 and 1990 in various parts of the world, the Mega Drive was a huge success for Sega, selling almost 31 million units during its lifetime, and fared particularly well in North America and the United Kingdom. Aside from the blast processing power the system had under its hood, not to mention the tongue-in-cheek Genesis does what Nintendo don't advertising campaign, the main thing that the Mega Drive had over the Master System and allowed it to ultimately take a sizable chunk of the market away from Nintendo was a certain Blue Hedgehog. It would not be overstating things to say that Sega and Sonic the Hedgehog are one and the same entity in the public consciousness, arguably as synonymous as Nintendo and Mario. This was massively important for Sega, as side-scrolling mascot games were as in vogue in the late 80s and early 90s as Battle Royale titles are today, and Mario's reign was virtually unchallenged until Sonic came along. The genuine creativity and charismatic appeal of the iconic Sonic character, coupled with a marketing masterclass, allowed Sega to soar to unimaginable heights. By 1992, Sega had taken over 60% of the North American market. Although Sonic was the magic bullet for Sega, the brand's insight into its target market was key. Sega faithfully converted the most popular arcade games of the day, acquired licensed sport titles, and created an edgy, in-your-face image that prevailed in the hearts of the youth at the time. Sega vs. Nintendo and Sonic vs. Mario were battle lines drawn in the sand across playgrounds and classrooms for generations of kids. You were either one or the other, blue or red, and your reputation would live or die by your choice. Sounds familiar, right? We're looking at you, PlayStation and Xbox players. The console wars of the 90s are now the stuff of legend, so it would not do to dwell on this period for longer than it is necessary. The next major battle Sega had in its hands was not to be fought in 16 bits, but in 32. Sega released multiple add-on peripherals in a bid to extend the life of the Mega Drive, including the Sega CD and the 32X, both designed to offer superior gaming experiences than the standard Mega Drive in lieu of a true 32-bit system. Both fared pretty poorly, and the 32X is now a pretty rare collector's piece. Such is its inherent strangeness. It did not take too long, however, for Sega to release a dedicated 32-bit system, with 1995 seeing the release of the Sega Saturn. By this point, the home console market had opened up significantly, with the likes of the Panasonic Sonic 3DO, the Atari Jaguar, and of course, a little thing called the PlayStation, all competing for gamers' attention in the mid to late 90s. The Saturn actually went on to become Sega's best-selling system in Japan, but endured poor sales in the UK and the US due to no small part to its competitively high price when placed alongside Sony's debut console. Saturn did, however, showcase some excellent games, and definitely has its place in the hearts of fans. Titles like Panzer Dragoon Saga, Sega Rally Championship, Virtua Fighter 2, and Nights into Dreams certainly stood to demonstrate what the system was truly capable of. Fast forward to 1998, and the world bore witness to what would ultimately be Sega's farewell to the home console market. And what a way to go, the Dreamcast. Sega rolled the dice one final time with the Dreamcast in 1998. Despite the console's improved power and greatly improved ease for developers, at the time, it was nothing more than a final hurrah before the inevitable collapse. Having sold just over 9 million units in a criminally short lifespan of around 2 years, the Dreamcast is widely viewed as a colossal failure. The Dreamcast sold an impressive 372,000 units in the first 4 days. After a year though, sales for the Dreamcast plummeted. From 1998 to 2001, the Dreamcast only sold 3 million units in the United States. In the last year of the Dreamcast's life, Sega lost over $200 million. With the PlayStation 2 coming right around the corner, it was the last console Sega would ever make. Today, Sega exists as a video game making company only. It makes games for all the popular consoles. And while there has been a ton of rumors of Sega making its return to console, nothing has been confirmed. In the end though, money talks, and Sega took the decision to bow out of the home console market altogether, putting an end to almost 20 years worth of fantastic systems and creating a gap which Microsoft Xbox was more than happy to fill. With the focus turned irrevocably away from the hardware, Sega's mission was now to concentrate on the development of software in second and third party capacity. This strategy, to their credit, worked out very well, with Sega going on to develop and publish games for virtually all platforms in the years which followed the demise of their own systems. Indeed, titles and franchises like Bayonetta, Panzer Dragon, Yakuza, and of course Aliens Colonial Marines all bear the Sega stamp and are very much alive and well today. In a move which would have blown the mind of gamers in the 90s, Sega even went as far to allow their earnest mortal enemy, Nintendo, access to their blue spiky figurehead, with Sonic and Friends appearing in the likes of the Super Smash Bros. And Mario and Sonic at the Olympic franchises. A seemingly shocking decision, but one that makes total sense. But what of the future? Good question, random internet person. Sega is in a good place right now, and are widely expected to go from strength to strength as we roll inexorably forward through the 20s. Recent years have seen Sega dust off and reintroduce much of their amazing back catalogs to a new generation of gamers, while simultaneously tugging at the nostalgia strings of older players. From the Sega Mega Drive Classic Collection's hidden current-gen systems, or selling individually via the Switch eShop, to the Mega Drive Mini so successful riding the mini console wave kicked up by Nintendo, Sega have realized the value of the treasure they sit so comfortably atop of. Such is the current momentum of Sega, that industry insiders and gamers alike seem to genuinely expect the company to announce a shock return to the home console market, after it had promised a big announcement as part of its 60th anniversary celebrations. Ultimately, this huge announcement proved to be the release of the Game Gear Micro, much to the confusion of fans around the globe. Micro indeed, as the system fits into the palm of an average-sized person's hand and sports a 1.15-inch screen. Still, that the announcement of a tiny handheld system was opposed to a full new console was seen as a disappointment surely speaks volumes about Sega's current trajectory. Arguably, the single most significant catalyst behind the current Sega revival, however, was something created not by the gaming giants themselves, but by fans. 2017's Sonic Mania. The game hit shelves in 2017 to rave reviews, with fans and critics alike praising the game as a return to the classic beloved Sonic formula, which steered clear of the problems that had badly plagued 3D Sonic titles like Sonic Boom and Sonic Unleashed. With Sonic well and truly back on the table, quite literally if you own the amiibo, plans to bring the blue hedgehog to the silver screens started looking less bizarre, and 2020 saw the release of the much anticipated Sonic the Hedgehog live-action movie. Starring Jim Carrey and James Marsden, the film was, surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, depending on your own point of view, a huge hit, and a sequel was released in 2022.
Gotta go fast.
One statistic which will be difficult to wrap our collective heads around is the fact that Sega are actually more profitable today than they have ever been in the console war, and are particularly, to borrow a famous phrase, big in Japan. So, while nobody knows for certain what's up next for the Japanese giant, one thing we can say for sure is that we have definitely not seen the last of Sega, and if the rumors prove to be true, and that they really are working on a new console, then fans around the world will be hoping that Sega can get it onto the market as soon as humanly possible. What do you think will be Sega's next move? Would you invest in the console if the company is making one? Or would you stick with your current console? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe and click that bell icon so you're notified every time we post something new. Or we will patch you faster than Sonic can do a lap.
Gotta go fast.